Alright guys, today we've got a wild one. We're watching a so-called Marxist feminist absolutely gasp for air when Andrew drops a take so strong it shatters her worldview in real time. Will she recover, will she double down, or will she finally see the light? Let's break it down.
Well, wouldn't that just be black swan fallacy, just because there's that one example where they didn't?
Oh, no.
I think
That's
to a
in
specific degree.
Here, we'll give you every example. They didn't do it under Genghis Khan. They didn't do it in Rome.
Yeah, it would just be, again, a black swan fallacy.
So,
but I mean,
that's not a black swan fallacy, by the way. But that
how would it not be? We just haven't seen it, so therefore it can't happen.
Okay, so first of all, what I'm saying is I'm pointing to a historic standard.
Sure.
And saying the historic standard, and I asked you a question. I didn't make a propositional statement, so that's why it can't be fallacious.
But I would say that ultimately it does come down to women. If she doesn't want to sustain pregnancy and is a slave, she does obviously have the opportunity to kill herself.
Yes, but
like you can't have society continue.
I will say that I'll grant this. It is logically possible that all women who are enslaved can off themselves. Not disputing that.
Right.
However, it's also logically possible they do not, right?
Sure.
Okay, which one do you think is more likely then?
I mean, it would depend on so many different conditions.
Okay, well then that's fair. So give me a single condition in which the female slaves of all of history have ever collectively offed themselves in order to prevent their own slavery.
Well, it wouldn't be to prevent their own slavery. It would be essentially to stop the, the next generation. And even if
that
you
would
do
be preventing slavery.
Sure, and even if you do have women who are enslaved.
Can you give me an example of a single?
No, I can't.
Because there isn't any. There's no example.
But I'm sure you wouldn't say that that's moral. That's what men ought to do.
Well, I believe in objective morality. I'll make ought claims based on an unchanging standard, but you're a moral relativist. You can't be like, you can't do that. It's relative. It's totally relative.
Mean?
So is one set of morals of more value than another set of morals?
I think there are moral facts, if that's what you're asking me.
No, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you if one set of moral particulars has more value than another set of moral particulars.
I'm not sure how to answer.
Well, I would just need to know for instance, we have one society over here that murders women and a society over here that does not murder women. Okay. Can you point to something objective that makes the society murdering women? There's some moral claim that you can make which is objective for why that's wrong.
Well, I mean, murder by definition is wrong.
No. Why would it's the unjustified?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unjustified
wrong.
Doesn't mean immoral.
Well, it means wrong. If it's not just, then it's unjust, which would be wrong.
Okay. We'll rephrase then. They set the conditionals for something you would consider to be murder and say it isn't. It's the justified killing of this group of people here. You consider it murder. What makes their moral facts wrong?
I mean, obviously it would depend on reason and context.
So you can, with reason and context, determine which moral facts are correct?
I think you can have certain observations when it comes to the outcomes. I mean, that would be consequentialism. I think there can be moral facts in terms of there are things that are always wrong regardless of context.
Like?
Why
would that always be wrong?
Well, rape would always be wrong.
Grape. We'll say grape.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that was right.
Yeah.
Grape would always be wrong because because of the harm that it causes.
Yeah. Why is harm wrong?
Because harm is, I mean, again, I would say harm by definition is wrong. Because it is an undesirable outcome within our subjective experience.
Okay, so are all undesirable outcomes immoral?
No.
Okay, well then, then you just contradicted your position.
Sure.
So then you can't point to a set of particulars, which are.
I think then again that would be kind of, based on obviously the scale of harm. I think if there's a certain degree of harm. It
wouldn't matter. If it is the case that nothing which is against your subjective experience that you consider harmful is bad, except by your own experience, then we're just back to relativism. It's like,
Sure.
yeah, you're never going to get past relativism. So I don't really know how you can make the claim that this is worse than that. But if you do, right, I'm just willing to grant that you have a principle and we'll adhere to the principle for the purpose of the debate so we don't bog it down with relativism
Sure.
versus non-relativism.
Okay.
We'll kind of just give you the out there because there's no reason to stay on it. But back to this idea of, let's see, right before that when we were diving into
Your force. Yeah.
and force doctrine. Yeah, so I would say that might makes. I'm not saying right. I'm not going to make the claim that it makes right, but it does make. And so I think that force doctrine is the necessary requisite for rights. It's the necessary requisite to have a nation. It's the necessary requisite to have anything. It's force.
I disagree because we could obviously agree on rights and have a cooperative
I
nature.
agree. We could agree on rights. And then if somebody violates the rights, what do we use?
I mean, I would be more towards restorative justice, as well as obviously centering the harm that the victim causes. But,
Both of those require force.
I can agree to some extent, but I don't think necessarily if rights violations happen, that what the punishment or what the outcomes is what one would deem justice. I would say the conditions to which society is to prevent harm would be the ultimate goal.
That would require force.
How?
Because if somebody violates any of your principles or any of your rights, how do you get them to not do that?
Well, I think rights violations happen for specific reasons within society. Like if you were to say that you violated my rights by coming in my house and stealing all my stuff, then if we're in a society of capitalism to where people are subjected to poverty and need access to material goods.
Okay, let's say we have communism. Communism can't exist without force. It's impossible.
Well, that's again like an example of how we would prevent rights violations, because I would say, like, if the right is violated, did you really have it to begin with?
Yeah, but you're baking into your hypothetical here, oh, you violated my right, and now we have done, and you did it based on some conditional of some externality that drove you to this.
Sure.
Right? Forget that, right? They just fucking want to. They just want to.
I think that's just a lazy presupposition.
That people just want to do things?
Yeah, to just want to cause harm. To just
Psychopaths
want
don't exist? Sociopaths, narcissists, these people don't exist? Or they do?
They do exist, but again, we're talking about what conditions they exist under, and those are very rare.
Okay, I'll even grant that it's rare.
Yeah.
I'll even grant that it's rare.
But I don't think people are born psychopaths or sociopaths. Again, I would say those are environmental conditions.
Okay, like what, nourishment?
Well, no, your brain is a social organ, and so it responds to your environment. I think they did a study where they analyzed, I forget how many serial killers' brains, but or serial unalivers, but they all had severe damage to the orbital region.
Well, I'd like to take a look at the data there,
Sure.
but was there a meta-analysis done on it?
I can't remember if it was a meta-analysis. I want to say it was, but I can't remember.
Well, in any case, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what society you live in. There's going to be a prerequisite requirement for force, no matter what. Doesn't matter how. Like, could you even give me in a society in which that would not be the case?
I mean, it's hard to conceptualize in terms of, I think if we had a society based on technology, what do you mean by force? Are we just talking about violence?
If you have a society in which people have if you have any sort of laws or you have any sort of rights at all, then
well, I agree with you that laws do.
The only thing which would create a prevention of the violation of said thing by a person would be the requirement of force. So if I
don't know how force prevents rights violations necessarily
it's the
those
only
instances.
thing that prevents rights violations.
Well, if you're saying men have the monopoly on force and that's instilled within patriarchy, then why do rights violations occur?
Well, no, that doesn't even follow. It would just follow that men are the only ones who could stop rights violations. I mean, at least in mass.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that would follow from that. It's like men are the ones in mass who would stop rights violations, which is exactly what happens right now. They are the ones in mass who stop rights violations.
I think when we talk about that too, like obviously, the entity that is in control of force is also can commit rights violations.
Sure.
So.
Don't disagree at all.
Okay.
Totally agree.
So I don't think that the way to society and essentially to establish rights is necessarily through force.
The only way it can be, well, what happens if you violate somebody's right then?
I mean, what do you mean what happens?
Well, how do you stop them from doing that?
Well, they already did it. What do you mean, how do you stop them?
Well, okay. So I want to take over your country, right?
Why?
Are you just going to let me walk in and do that? Or?
Well, I mean, why? And again, like, do you really have like the modes of production and the
feel
materials?
like it.
I just don't think people wake up and just say, I feel like doing this.
Do you feel like
motive
rapists wake up and feel like graping?
Wake up and feel like graping?
Like
no,
they
not
say,
necessarily.
today is the day?
No.
No?
No.
No? So, again, I'm actually really confused now.
I think
so
there are
you have-
instances, sure, where rape can be premeditated.
If we didn't enforce our laws, are you saying people would break them more or less?
If we didn't enforce our laws,
Would people break them more or less?
I think it would depend on the law.
Any law.
I mean, do you not schmurder because it's illegal?
There's probably a lot of people that I'd like to
Well,
if it was legal.
I'm just asking.
Murder's fine, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you and I would have
do you murder? Do you not murder because it's illegal?
You and I would have a distinction in what we would consider murder to be. Right? You and I would have a distinction in that.
What do you mean?
I
thought we agreed it's unjust killing.
Yeah, but what we consider justified to be would be different.
Okay.
So that would be where we would have a semantic distinction there, right? So, for instance, if somebody was stealing,
per the
hang
law,
on, I'll explain.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Someone is stealing property. Are you entitled to kill them?
I mean, per the law, sure.
No, but do you think morally?
Oh, morally?
Yeah. Like somebody's taking off with your TV.
Oh, no.
Yeah, see, I think dead, right? So you see, we have a distinction in justification.
Sure.
So you think that's murder. I think, no, it's not. So to answer your question, yeah. If the law wasn't there to say you can't shoot him if he's stealing your TV.
So you would shoot someone who is stealing your TV?
Yeah. In the face.
In the face?
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yes. Yes. With an Uzi.
That's a crazy place to plant your flag.
An Uzi?
Yeah. Or, whatever was convenient. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
I would say that the loss of their life certainly outweighs your TV.
Well, I mean, if the TV didn't outweigh their ability to run, I probably would have missed, right? But the thing is you know what else would have prevented this? Them not stealing my TV.
That's true.
Is the context here? This is a home invasion.
Yeah.
Like it's in your house.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you can. I think you have the ability to defend your property.
Yeah.
And that your property, anything that's within the domain of on your physical property, right? Meaning property you own. I consider that all to be the French word curtilage. Mm-hmm. And anything within the viewpoint of curtilage is a violation of your actual property and therefore a rights violation. You have every right to put that person down so that you don't encourage additional people to do it. So in many ways, I think you're defending not just yourself, but everybody around you if more people took that stance.
I think the better solution would be to recognize why someone's stealing your TV.
Okay, yeah. So, but how does that prevent them from doing it? So okay, we're investigating it now. By the way, we've been investigating why people steal shit for about 100 years. And you know what? We haven't really prevented people from stealing shit. But I'll just grant to you that we could.
Isn't it just scarcity, though?
I'll just grant to you that we could. No. People steal even when there's no scarcity. Bernie Madoff took off with how many people's pensions? There was no scarcity for him.
Well, I think capitalism creates scarcity even when there's abundance. That, it's never enough. You're
that
going to lose
sounds like a cope. So Bernie Madoff, who had everything, just needed more.
How many rich people have clearly enough money to live the rest of their life, not have to work, but still work?
Yeah, and how many women, right, who are living middle-class lifestyles steal for fun? They literally will steal things for fun because it gives them a thrill.
Sure.
You know, and it's like, so there could just be the example of greed and the example of, I want to do this thing because I really like doing it. And it's
I think there's a specific reason behind certain psychological habits or impulses, if you will.
Sure, but you can't cure the human condition. You can't.
How do you know that's the human condition, though?
Because we've been dealing with greed, and we've been dealing with these problems, at least in the 20th, 21st century, even with the marching of science. Mm-hmm. We have not been able to just increase people's material positions in life, and then crime suddenly goes away. That element will always be there. Now, I think you can reduce it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't reduce it. Like,
right.
People in abject poverty do commit crime more. I'm not saying that's not the case.
Sure.
What I am saying, though, is that in the interim time while you're trying to solve it, it doesn't change the fact this guy has my TV.
I never said it did.
Yeah, and so I see that as completely justified in blowing his face right off.
I disagree.
Why? Yeah, but why, though?
Again, I would say the life has more value than the TV.
Okay, let's see if you actually believe that.
Okay.
This would necessarily entail that his life had more value than any of your property.
What do you mean?
Well,
Why?
I mean, you're not going to put a number on his life, right? His life's worth more than all the money in the world, isn't it?
It's a man?
Woman.
Oh, then yes.
Yeah, fair enough. So this chick who wants to steal my TV, why can't she steal my house?
How would you steal someone's house?
You squat.
Squatters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now you've stolen my house and you've put me and my family on the street. Can I blow you away then?
Can you or ought?
Should
you?
Ought you morally be able to then?
I would say that housing, because obviously it affects the outcomes of your family's well-being or their own survival, would be justified.
Your position here is inconsistent. You
I
just
don't
said
think
that
it's
property itself.
It's not the property itself. If you had another house to go to that house.
So wait. So if I had two properties, they could chase me out of one of them because I had someplace else to go?
I don't think you should kill them.
But I can kill them if they're chasing me out of the one place I have to go.
Well, I would say, is that the only solution?
I mean, or you could call law enforcement and then they potentially kill them, trying to arrest them or whatever.
I'm just asking you if is that the only solution?
Well, I mean, right now, I think that
It's just in your hypothetical, I mean.
Oh, and within the confines of the hypothetical? No, you can have different solutions, right?
Then obviously I would opt for different solutions. I mean, why would they want your house?
Who knows? They squat in people's houses all the time.
Because they don't have houses?
No, I think a lot of times.
Because they don't have housing?
I think a lot of times people do have access to housing. They don't want to work, and they squat inside of people's houses because it's free.
Again, I just think that's like a capitalist assessment of human behavior as somehow being human nature.
Yeah, but this doesn't really answer my question about why it is that I can't kill them for taking my TV. It's mine.
I agree.
Yeah, why can't? So if you take my shit, I kill because it's taking away from my kids, right? If you take away,
what?
Well, if you take my TV, I have to replace it, right?
Sure.
That's going to cost me money.
Sure.
That necessarily takes food and resource away from my children, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So then necessarily what you're actually doing when you steal my TV is
I think it would just be depending on the degree.
Yeah, you're taking things from my children, right? And so the thing is my
potentially, sure.
Not potentially. If I have to replace the TV and I have to replace the TV with my money, that's going to
who knows? Maybe
be less.
Instead of, buying beer that week, you buy the TV.
Okay, so let's say your budget is set in such a way where you only have X amount of money per week, like most American families.
Sure.
Yeah. So then you're still taking money away from my kids, right?
If you decide to replace the TV, I don't know. If it were between food for my child and a TV, I would probably do food for my child.
Yeah, sure. But the thing is now you have to allocate funds away from your children. So any dollar
Well,
you
no,
take,
I would
any
just-
dollar you take from me, regardless of what I normally would have spent it on, is taking money away from my kids necessarily.
Possibly, sure.
Yeah. So the thing is like if you take from my kids, I kill you. Problem is, it seems reasonable to me. It's within the confines of reason. Logically stacks up.
I don't think so. I think that would just be depending on degree.
Why does it depend on the degree? If you don't steal shit, you don't get shot. It's simple. Like, what's the degree?
I mean, what if they were stealing food? Would that be an issue for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a person has a right to defend their food.
I mean, would you find it more justified if someone is like, would you steal food to feed your children?
Possibly. But do I think a person
I
is
would.
not justified in doing something about that? I think they are.
I'm not saying they're not justified in doing something about that. I'm
Right.
saying, like, obviously the reaction to
So what
would be
I
justified
do?
or not.
Can I see myself doing a bad thing on behalf of my children?
Yeah.
Sure. But that doesn't mean that I, within the confines of reason, don't understand that a person can't do something about that. It's like you can't
Right.
say, well,
I'm not saying that you can do
Yeah.
nothing. I
Right.
think you could try and take the TV back and punch them in the face.
well, that's dangerous.
sure.
They can punch you back.
Yeah. So is shooting them. They could shoot at you back.
Usually, if you shoot at somebody,
I don't
And
know
they're
how you
holding
can
a
say
teeth-
my situation's dangerous, but yours isn't.
if somebody's running with your TV and you're shooting at them, I don't think they're going to be shooting back.
They're very skilled.
They're going to hold the TV like this and grab the
I mean,
gun.
they're thin. Yeah, you can use one arm and.
You don't think that's like moderately deranged?
I don't think it's moderately deranged.
You don't think
no.
so? You don't think that TVs require two hands for men to carry them?
No. I mean, I guess it depends how big the TV is.
Like your living room TV? You're gonna.
I mean,
take
my
both
living
hands.
room TV is big,
Yeah.
but like my bedroom TV is
Also,
small.
by the way, it's just less dangerous in general. If you fire the first shot, chances are pretty good that that's the end of the conversation.
Wow. That was something else. I mean, you could literally see the moment her brain short-circuited. It's crazy how some people will cling to their beliefs even when the logic right in front of them is airtight. But hey, that's what happens when your entire worldview is built on feelings instead of facts. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Andrew completely wrecked her argument, or do you think she had some valid points? Drop a comment below, and let's get this discussion going. Also, if you enjoyed this reaction, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe because we're just getting started. There's a lot more content coming your way, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Alright, that's it for today. Stay sharp, stay questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.